I just want a lot of y'all to know as I finish this story up, but this is not a black story. It's not a white story. It's an American story. This is America, you know. And so as we try to put aside the things that accentuate our differences and then listen to the truth, then that should be the basis of what we all try to follow, even though we fall short. Because I know I fall short. But the truth is what we should be after. And the truth is what we should act on. You know what I'm saying? This is unacceptable as an American group of people. This should be totally unacceptable that we were gaslit and black people have been projected upon by this 1% again that uses all their menial means of power, like the media, like the institutions, like the courts, like the police departments. These are all the flying monkeys of a system that was built in to destroy me and my people. And as much as I try to stay away from these conversations, it just always brings itself back. Because the one thing that many, well, let me just say this. Let me just say, and this is for my brother James Earl Ray. I'm so glad that you were exonerated. As a white man, I'm glad that that didn't stay on for those who are believers. I mean, the non-believers can't do nothing about that. But I'm sure you glad that didn't stay, even though you were a petty criminal, that didn't stay on your heart and on your mind and on your reputation and legacy, that you were the one that was responsible for killing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm glad that you were exonerated, because I sure believe you. I believe you. Like I said, this is black and white history all mixed in together. This is America. And this is the stuff that people don't want to see. And this is why the retribution that has to now begin to take place shouldn't be done with a malice heart. It should be done with a humble heart, knowing that you have lied and ruined so many people's lives. Setting up a passing. Lastly, the one thing that many of us don't know is that Ray was in prison in 1967, the year before the assassination, serving a 20-year sentence for a grocery store robbery in 1959. After a couple of unsuccessful escape attempts, Ray succeeded in breaking out of prison April 23, 1967. Unknown to Ray was the fact that the escape had been orchestrated, because he already had been chosen as the patsy in a planned assassination, which was still a year away. You see what I'm saying? He thought he got away with something. He thought he broke out of prison. They let him break out because they were going to use him as a patsy. The warden of Missouri State Penitentiary was paid $25,000 by Russell Atkins to allow the escape, as confirmed by Ron Atkins. The money was delivered to Atkins by Tolson, okay, J. Edgar Hoover's alleged lover. And it was this same connection that would later be used to finance the assassination of King. After his escape from prison, Ray went to Chicago for a few weeks, where he got a job, but worried about getting caught. He went to Canada, specifically Montreal, and took the name Eric S. Galt. His intention was to get a passport under a false name and to travel to a country which he could not be extradited. At the Neptune Bar in the Montreal dock area in 1967, May met a mysterious figure who identified himself as Raoul. Raoul asked Ray to help him with a smuggling scheme, and Ray agreed. In the months ahead, Ray would do a number of jobs, including gun running for Raoul, which he was paid and given a car. Always, Ray had to wait to be contacted by Raoul, who Ray said was coordinated his activities right up until the day of the assassination. At one point, Ray was instructed to purchase a deer rifle with a scope, although Raoul was not satisfied with the one he bought and made him exchange it for another. Ray was instructed to go to Memphis. He said he arrived on April 3rd, 1968, and upon meeting with Raoul, in his motel was given the name Jim's Grill, where the two were to meet at 3 p.m. the next day. He also handed over the rifle to Raoul and always maintained that he never saw it again. Okay? Ray rented a room. No, listen to this again. Ray handed over that rifle to Raoul, and he always maintained that he didn't see the rifle again. Ray rented a room at a rooming house above Jim's Grill. The two met the day of the assassination as planned. About an hour before the shooting, he was given money to go to the movies. But first, he tried to have a tire repaired because Raoul had said he wanted to use the car. But when Ray heard the sirens that followed the shooting, he got scared and left the area. Fearing he had been set up, Ray left the country and ended up in England, where he was captured on June 8, 1968, at London's Heathrow Airport as he was trying to leave the UK. Once charged with the crime, Ray was pressured by his second lawyer, Percy Foreman, to plead guilty on the grounds that the evidence was too strong against him, and Foreman was not in good health and couldn't offer a strong defense. What the hell? Foreman was sent in with the purpose of replacing the original lawyers, Pepper said. Foreman offered Ray $500 to get another lawyer if he pleaded guilty, and even put this in writing. Ray would regret accepting this offer for the rest of his life. He tried unsuccessfully to rescind the guilty plea and to get the trial for the next 30 years, finally dying in prison of cancer in 1998. I remember. Pepper becomes convinced of Ray's innocence. It was 10 years after the assassination before Pepper would even consider meeting with Ray. He had taken for granted at first that Ray was the assassination, but he was encouraged to meet him by Reverend Ralph Abernathy, who had successfully succeeded King as the president of the SCLC. Abernathy had remained unsatisfied with the official account of the shooting. In the book, Pepper describes his first meeting with Ray in 1978 and how quickly he came to believe that Ray had not been the shooter, and that the case was essentially still unsolved. It wasn't until 1988 before Pepper became too certain that Ray had not displayed any knowing part of the conspiracy, and that at that point he agreed to represent him, which he did until his death. Purveyors of the official story of the assassination have always claimed that Raoul was an invention of Ray's, and the mainstream media's accounts refer to this question as still unanswered, even though Pepper not only found witnesses to describe their connections to Raoul, he actually found Raoul himself with the help of witness Glenda Grabeau. Pepper learned that his last name was Coelho. She identified Raoul as someone she had known in Houston in 1963, and who around 1974, in a fit of rage, had implicated himself in the King assassination right before raping her. Grabeau also identified Jack Ruby as someone who she had seen Raoul with in 1963. This fascinating story is recounted both in An Act of State and The Plot to Kill King. Rabbit hole gets deep, don't it? One of the most intriguing things to come out of both of these books is the account of a young FBI agent by the name of Don Wilson, who after the assassination was sent to check out a white Mustang with Alabama plates. Ray drove a white Mustang that had been abandoned and that was thought to be connected to the assassination. Wilson opened the door and some papers fell out. He examined them and later found a torn out piece of a 1963 Dallas, Texas telephone directory. Written on the page was the name Raoul and the initial J and a phone number, which turned out to be that of the Las Vegas nightclub run by Jack Ruby, the man who had shot Lee Harvey Oswald in the basement of the Dallas police station. A second piece of paper had a list of names and amounts of money beside each. Wilson decided to hold on to this to make it evidence, fearing it would disappear forever if he turned it in. He held on to it for 29 years before making it available to Pepper and the King family. Another incredible revelation in the plot to kill King is the identity of a man who appears to have fired the fatal shot. Pepper learned his identity from Lenny B. Curtis, who was a custodian at the Memphis Police Department rifle range. Curtis told Pepper that in 2003, and Pepper recorded a deposition with him but kept it confidential out of fear for Curtis's life. Only after his death in 2013 did Pepper reveal what Curtis had said, that the shooter was Memphis police officer Frank Strasser. Wow. Wow. Y'all see this? You see why I say that the institutions are flying monkeys? They're the flying monkeys of the narcissist 1%. And pretty much the country has an opportunity to take the role of a flying monkey or one that's a bearer and the light bringer of truth. And from the looks of it, most of them are dark spirits. They just like the shooter, Frank Strasser. And they don't want to give up anything. And they'd rather can keep the lie going with the narcissists. The narcissistic system, I should say, that kills people and projects a narrative that it's their own fault that they're being murdered. We had to be careful about Curtis's safety, Pepper said. Curtis said to Pepper in his deposition that he heard Strasser say about King 4 or 5 months before the assassination that somebody was going to blow this motherfucking brains out. He also described that Strasser had practiced in the rifle range with a particular rifle that had been brought in 4 or 5 days earlier by a member of the fire department. That fireman had shown the rifle up to Curtis and asked, "How would you like that scoundrel, that baby there?" When Curtis said it looked like any other rifle, he replied, "No, this is a special one. That baby is special." Lenny remembered that on that day of the assassination, Strasser spent the whole day practicing with it. Strasser has given several conflicting accounts as to where he was. Wow. And what he was doing that day.